Today's video is all about tropes you love and thriller books that match those tropes. Let's get into it. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Carly, and today I'm going to be talking to you all about thriller tropes that we all love and then matching them up with books that capture these tropes perfectly. In my humble opinion. I'm going to be talking about popular thriller tropes like unreliable narrators, domestic thrillers, missing person, legal thriller, mistaken identity, all the ones we love. And there's also like a little sprinkling of some lesser known tropes like forensic, childhood trauma, near future thrillers. Honestly, I am so excited to talk to you about all of these books. Now, full credit, one of you guys actually suggested this video to me as part of my Vlogmas. I think one of you said, what about doing a different trope every day as part of like a Vlogmas series? But I don't think I've got enough recommendations to do one video on each trope. Do you know what I mean? So I thought I would combine them and do a collective video of all of my favourite tropes and kind of like my favourite thriller books that match them. As I was sat down planning this video, I was thinking to myself, like, what even is a trope? When I restarted my reading journey last April, I kept seeing this word trope everywhere. And I was like, what even is a trope? And correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I believe a trope is just a running theme throughout a book, like a recurring theme that isn't actually the plot. Does that make sense? So yeah, I've got lots of books to talk to you about today. I think there's over 20 here. Standard me can never do a short list. God help me when I've got to narrow it down and do my top 10 for the end of the year, because I honestly don't know how I'm going to manage. And yeah, I think I'm going to leave the intro there. If you are enjoying my content and you like my vibe, I would absolutely love it if you could hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, hit the little hype button as well. Your support means more than I could ever tell you. I'm going to leave the intro there and dive straight into these books because I feel like it's going to take me a while to go through them all. Starting off with one of my favourite tropes, the unreliable narrator trope. And for most of this video, I have tried to pick just one book per trope. But for some tropes, I really struggle to narrow it down to just one. So I've actually got two recommendations for you for this trope, starting with The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. Now, this book is available on Kindle Unlimited and it's actually been made into a film. In my opinion, the book was much better than the film, as it always is. It follows the story of a woman called Anna who hasn't left her apartment for 10 months. I think she's got like agoraphobia, so she's terrified to go outside. Her only lifeline to the outside world is to sit in her window, watch the world go by and to nose at her neighbours through their windows. Now, one evening, Anna is sat at her window, nosing on her neighbours, and she witnesses a truly horrendous crime. So she stood there panicking, thinking, well, I can't leave the house. Like, what am I going to do? So she calls the police. And do you know what? I don't really want to say too much more about the plot because I don't want to spoil it. But the whole book is basically about, did Anna actually see what she thought she saw? Or was she like hallucinating and is she unraveling and losing her mind? Honestly, my favourite trope in books. I love an unreliable narrator who you can't trust, who doesn't even trust themselves and their own mind. And yeah, I highly recommend this book. I actually think it's really underrated. And we've also got Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney. And this book has the ultimate unreliable narrator because all she does is lie. Hence the title. I'm going to read you the blurb because it's tiny. All it says is, my name is Amber Reynolds. There are 3 things you should know about me. 1, I'm in a coma. 2, my husband doesn't love me anymore. 3, sometimes I lie. So as it says in the blurb, Amber's in a coma and absolutely terrifyingly, she is aware of her surroundings. She knows exactly what's going on. But she can't open her eyes and she can't move, like she's completely paralysed. Like that in itself, that's another trope I absolutely love. Is it a trope? I don't know if it's a trope, but I love that claustrophobic vibe within thriller books as well. And this, oh my God, I could actually imagine myself lying in the hospital bed like Amber was and just not being able to move. And yeah, the whole time you read this book, Alice Feeney just leaves you questioning absolutely everything she is telling you, and I just love it. I love it when you can't trust the author or the main character, and in classic Alice Feeney style, there's a cracking twist at the end. The next trope we have got is a domestic thriller, and the book I have chosen for that is Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. So this follows the story of a married couple called Grace and Jack, and on the outside, their marriage is everything that everybody else could dream of. Jack is handsome, he's a successful lawyer, Grace is an elegant housewife. Like, on the outside, their lives are absolutely perfect. But this book is the ultimate, you never know what goes on behind closed doors, because behind closed doors, it's a very different story. Grace can't go anywhere without Jack tagging along. She never answers the house phone. And why are there bars on some of the bedroom windows? Honestly, this is another really underrated thriller book, in my opinion. It gave me the most horrendous anxiety while I was reading it. I don't want to go into too much detail about why, because I don't want to spoil it, but I really, really enjoyed it. The only thing I will say is there's a massive trigger warning in it for animal cruelty. So definitely go into it with caution, because it was really uncomfortable to read. I didn't like that. Next up, we have got the Stalker trope, and the book I have chosen for this is Every Move You Make by C.L. Taylor, which is another book that's available on Kindle Unlimited. Now, this book follows the story of 5 people who have become friends because they all have something in common. They are all being stalked by somebody. So they've got a group chat where they check in with each other just to make sure they're safe. And right at the beginning of the book, this isn't a spoiler at all, it's all in the blurb, one of the friends is murdered. And at their funeral, they get a threat that another one of them is going to die in 10 days' time. So you've got another element that I absolutely love in thriller books, which is a race against time and like a countdown to something terrible happening. And to be honest, you've kind of got a little bit of unreliable narrator within it as well, because the way it's written, you don't actually know if you can trust any one of the other friends in the group, do you know what I mean? Or if it's their stalkers. Like, you literally get so many different angles within this book. I absolutely loved it. It's definitely one that will get your heart rate going, like high stakes and danger. And yeah, if you love the stalker trope, this one does that trope so well. Another one that does their tropes so well is Before I Go to Sleep by S.J. Watson, and the trope within this book is memory loss. So you know those thriller books where the main character can't remember what's happened, and again, you've got like the unreliable narrator element because of the memory loss. This book is chef's kiss. It follows the story of Christine, and do you know what? This book kind of gave 50 First Dates vibes, but more sinister. So every time Christine goes to sleep, in the morning, she wakes up and she's forgotten her whole life. Like, she doesn't know who she is. Like, she can't remember anything. And she even looks in the mirror and she's really confused at why she looks like 10 years older than she thought she looked. Do you know what I mean? Like, in her head. The only person Christine has in her life to tell her every day about what has happened to her is her husband. She's not entirely sure she can trust that he's telling her everything. So she starts investigating her own life and trying to keep a diary so that when she goes to sleep and she forgets it all, she tries to like give herself little prompts to find the diary so that she can catch up on what she's found out. Honestly, this was such a frustrating book to read just because I felt frustrated on Christine's behalf, because she would almost take like 2 steps forward with her investigation, start finding out things, and then go to sleep and forget it all and take 1 step back. So yeah, if you love a bit of mind-bending, unreliable narrator, memory loss vibes, then I highly recommend this one. Right, next up we have got a locked room claustrophobic trope. Another one of my absolute faves. And to be honest, I could have picked about 10 for this trope because I love it so much. But I did manage to narrow it down to just one, Nightwatching by Tracy Sierra. So this is your ultimate home invasion thriller, and oh my God, the anxiety and stress levels while I was reading this book were through the roof. So it follows the story of our main character, who is a mum, and she is tucking her son back into bed after he's been into her because he's had a nightmare. And while she's tucking him back into bed, she hears the creaking of footsteps coming up the stairs. And she's like, well, there shouldn't be any footsteps coming up the stairs. So who on earth is coming up my stairs? And in that split second, she must decide whether to hide, whether to fight, whether to try and leg it. Honestly, like, what would you even do? As a mother myself, this book stressed me out so much, and it kind of gave me like Panic Room vibes. You know the film with Jodie Foster in? It definitely gave me those claustrophobic locked room vibes. It's also set during a snowstorm, so that's another element to add to the claustrophobic vibes, you know? So yeah, highly recommend this one if you want to feel extremely stressed out when you read a book. Right, the next trope is the forensic trope, which I absolutely love. And again, I could have picked quite a few for this one, but I narrowed it down to The Butcher and the Wren by Alaina Urquhart. So this is actually book 1 of 2. I've only read book 1, but I'm very excited to read book 2. And it is about a serial killer and the forensic pathologist who's trying to help the police track him down. So this serial killer is known as the Bayou Butcher, and he's not a very nice guy, to be honest. But what I will say is you get the POV of the serial killer, which, call me unhinged, but I absolutely loved because he was absolutely tapped. But it was kind of humorous in a way to read. We listen and we don't judge, okay? You know, like when people are so unhinged, it's actually funny to read because you're like, surely not. Surely this person isn't going to do that. And obviously he does. So that is where the butcher element of the title comes in. And the Wren bit of the title is the name of our forensic pathologist who is doing the autopsies on his victims and trying to piece together like what he's doing, why he's doing it, and ultimately how to catch him. So you've got a strong forensic element, and you've also got kind of like a bit of a cat and mouse chase as well. I absolutely bloody love this book. It's another one, in my opinion, that is really underrated. And yeah, like I said, I cannot wait to read book 2 in this series. The next trope we have got is the legal courtroom thriller trope, which is another one of my faves. I honestly think I'm just going to say this about every single trope in the video. And the book I have picked for it is Next of Kin by Kia Abdullah, which is another one that's available on Kindle Unlimited. So in this book, we follow Layla, who is on her way to drop her nephew off to nursery. However, Layla gets distracted during the journey. She's a busy businesswoman and she's easily distracted. She's got a lot on her mind. She goes into work and she forgets that she hasn't actually dropped her nephew off to nursery, but instead she's left him in the car on the hottest day of the year. Obviously, you can imagine this doesn't end very well. And do you know what? This all happens right at the beginning of the book, so it's no spoilers at all. When I first started reading it, I was like, where's this going to go? And how is it going to work when all of the action has happened right at the beginning? Because I feel like the general formula for thriller books is to have like this little bit of like slow burn tension, this creeping dread throughout with good pacing to keep you hooked enough to want this grand reveal at the end. But this one started, like it threw you straight into the action and you're like, oh, I've literally read about 50 pages. What's going to happen in the other 300? Do you know what I mean? But oh my God, this is one of my favourite thriller books this year. And what precedes that event in question is this legal case. And yeah, you've got the courtroom thriller elements, which I absolutely love. I just love like courtroom procedure. I find it absolutely fascinating. And honestly, you best prepare yourself for the ending of this book because there are about 10 different twists that gave me whiplash. Like, you are just hit with twist after twist after twist. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't see any of them coming. You know when you've convinced yourself that you've guessed even just one? No, I was wrong about them all. So highly recommend this one. And also, before I go on to my next trope, I just want to give a brief mention to The Cutthroat Trial by S.J. Fleet, because this is another legal thriller that I read recently. I actually did this one on audio and I highly recommend the audio because you have got a full cast and the way it's recorded is so clever. It actually sounds like you're in a courtroom, like you get the background chatter and, oh, it's fantastic. So it's basically about 3 teenage boys who are on trial for the murder of their elderly, I was going to say, I don't know if he's in his 60s or 70s, I can't remember, music teacher. So you get the POV of each teenage boy that's on trial. You get the POV of each of their lawyers, barristers, I think. And then you also get the POV of the judge. And this is just entirely set in the courtroom. It is outstanding and I really, really enjoyed it. So yeah, if you love thriller books that are heavy on the legal procedure and courtroom vibes, then I highly recommend this one as well. Right, the next trope is the mistaken identity trope. Another one I bloody love, and the book I've chosen for it is My Husband's Wife by Alice Feeney. Now, this book isn't actually out yet. I was very lucky to be sent a proof copy. It releases at the end of January. So, after I've told you about it, if you like the sound of it, then this is your sign to pre-order it, because this is one of my favourite Alice Feeney books. I bloody loved it. This book kicks off straight away, and it follows the story of Eden Fox. She goes out for her morning run, and when she comes back from her run, she tries to use her key in her front door, and her key doesn't work. And she's like, well, that's very strange. Like, why is my key not working in the front door? Anyway, to cut a very long story short, Eden knocks her front door, even though it's her own front door. She's a little bit confused with the whole situation. And when the front door opens, stood in the doorway is another woman that looks exactly like Eden. And even more bizarre than that, she's claiming that she's actually Eden Fox, and this woman who's just been for a run is an imposter. Now, what would you do? Do you know, I always try my best to put myself in these situations. And as I was reading it, I honestly think this would be my worst nightmare. Can you imagine? So it even goes further than that. I'm going off on a tangent as usual, because Eden, who's just been for a run, her husband is in the house and he's like, no, you're not Eden. The one who's in the house is Eden. This is actually really confusing to try and talk about when the character is like the same name. So nobody believes she is who she says she is. All of her documentation proving who she is in the house that she can't get access to. Like, wouldn't this just be your worst nightmare, that nobody believes you are who you say you are? And yeah, we've got like side stories. There's a lot going on in this book, to be honest. And in classic Alice Feeney style, we have got another cracking twist. Do you know, I think there's like 3 Alice Feeney books in this video. But yeah, honestly, this book absolutely blew my tiny brain. And it's a book that I couldn't put down. You know, when you can't stop thinking about a book and you don't want to put it down, and even when you have to put it down, you can't wait to pick it back up. It had me reading late into the night as well. Like, a book hasn't done that for such a long time. So yeah, honestly, cannot recommend this one enough. If you are an Alice Feeney fan and you love the mistaken identity trope, I urge you to pre-order your copy now. Right, next up we have got the hostage trope, which is another one of my faves, shock. And the book I have picked for that is The Last Thing to Burn by Will Dean. Now this one is actually wild because our main character, who's called Jane, is being held hostage in her own house by her own husband. Jane is trapped in this house. She can't go anywhere. Her husband records her every move, watches it back, and will punish her if she steps a foot out of line. Jane is desperate to escape her very miserable existence. And to be honest, this book just escalates and just becomes more and more unhinged, more and more, it's just so claustrophobic and dangerous, because you're really rooting for Jane to try and find an escape, but there's literally no way out. Oh, honestly, I love this book. It's actually really short as well. It's under 300 pages, is it? Oh, it's under 250 pages. So it's the perfect like snack-sized thriller book that you could binge in one sitting, actually. So yeah, highly recommend this one for the hostage trope, because it's another one that absolutely stressed me out. But also, I want to mention Such Quiet Girls by Noelle W. Ihli, because that one is another kind of like kidnap hostage thriller that also gave me horrendous anxiety. So even more wild is this book is based on a true story, and it's about a bus of school children and their bus driver that get hijacked, and then the bus is taken away to another location and put inside a shipping container that is buried 20 feet underground. Like, I am hyperventilating just thinking about it. So you have got the hostage situation, obviously, because they're being held hostage, but they're being held hostage 20 feet underground where the oxygen is rapidly running out. And when I tell you, I actually felt like I was running out of oxygen while I was reading this book. You know when they're like describing how they're running out of air and they're starting to feel lightheaded and they're like gasping for oxygen? I was like, oh my God, honestly, it's so, so good. So yeah, another one that I highly recommend for the hostage / kidnap trope. My next trope, and another one of my faves, is the revenge trope. I particularly love this trope when it's an unhinged female carrying out the revenge, and the book I have chosen for this trope is They Never Learn by Layne Fargo. So this follows the story of Scarlett, who by day is an English professor, and by night she's a serial killer, basically, carrying out her revenge on men that she thinks deserve it. But Scarlett has started to get a little bit out of control, and the police have started noticing that a lot of men have gone missing lately. So they start looking into these disappearances, and Scarlett's starting to think to herself, realistically, how long am I likely to get away with my extracurricular activities? This is another one, in my opinion, that is so underrated. I loved Scarlett's character. I loved the storyline. I loved Layne Fargo's writing. And absolutely no spoilers at all, but I bloody loved the direction this book went in and the way it ended. That's all I'm going to say. Right, next up we have got the psychological / psychiatric trope. And of course, for this trope I have picked The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. I do feel like every single person on the planet has probably read this book by now. It was massive on Book Talk. Was it last year, year before? I'm not entirely sure. I actually read this book in 2019 before all the hype. And I think that did me a favour, to be honest, because sometimes I do feel like hype ruins books, but still going to recommend this one anyway because I personally really enjoyed it. And again, this one has got a really short blurb, and I just think the blurb does a perfect job of setting the scene. So I'm just going to read you the blurb. It says, Alicia Berenson lived a seemingly perfect life until one day 6 years ago when she shot her husband in the head 5 times. Since then, she hasn't spoken a single word. It's time to find out why. So it's all about this woman who is in a psychiatric hospital, psychiatric unit, and there's a psychiatrist trying to get her to talk again because she's gone mute. To be honest, I just love any books that are set in an asylum or a psychiatric unit. I find them absolutely fascinating. So yeah, if you do too, then definitely check this one out. Right, next up we have got Family Secrets, the family secret trope, and the book I've chosen for that is The New Neighbours by Claire Douglas. So this book follows the story of our main character called Layne, and she is new to the area, and she's met her new neighbours and they seem really lovely. They are a kind retired couple who have moved to a quiet area just for a quiet life, basically. But one day, Layne overhears a conversation between her neighbours, and apart from the fact that she thinks she has misheard what they've said because it's so outrageous, she's also thinking to herself, are these neighbours as nice as they seem? And the whole book is basically, I feel like you've kind of got a little bit of an unreliable narrator within this as well, because Layne starts digging deeper into what she thinks she's heard them say, and she starts trying to investigate it. There's like a danger element as well because she thinks she can hear somebody in the house or outside the house. And honestly, this is another one that is extremely underrated. Don't think I have heard anybody talk about it. And yeah, this is kind of like your classic family secrets / domestic thriller. Next up, we've got another one of my absolute faves and another trope that always gives me the worst anxiety, the survival trope. And the book I have picked for that is Grey After Dark by Noelle W. Ihli. So this book follows the story of Miley, who takes a job at a summer camp. Miley is out on one of her morning runs in between her shifts at this summer camp, and she's abducted and she's taken to this cabin in a very isolated, remote location. And to be honest, I don't actually think I could put into words just how unhinged what happens in this cabin is. And I'm not even going to try to because I don't want to spoil it for you. But this is the ultimate survival thriller because Miley must outwit her captors if she's to stand any chance of surviving her ordeal. Oh my God, the stress and anxiety I felt when I read this book. My heart was absolutely pounding out of my chest. So yeah, if you want to feel the same and you like the survival trope, then I highly recommend this one. Next up, we have got the podcast trope, which is another one I love because I love like mixed media within my thriller books. And the book I've chosen for that is None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. Again, I do feel like this is a very popular book, but it does the podcast trope so well. So it follows the story of our main character called Alex, who has her own podcast. And one evening, she's out in a pub celebrating her birthday, where she bumps into a stranger called Josie, who is also there celebrating her birthday. And they both realise that they've got exactly the same birthday and they're birthday twins. Now, to cut a very long story short, Josie manages to convince Alex to start interviewing her for her new season on her podcast. And the more time Alex spends with Josie and the more she interviews her, the more she begins to realise that actually Josie is hiding a lot of secrets and she's quite unhinged. And again, I don't want to say too much more about it because I don't want to spoil anything, but basically Josie just starts worming her way deeper into Alex's life and it all just comes to a bit of a head, you know? I absolutely devoured this book. I raced through it. I couldn't put it down. And it is one of my favourite Lisa Jewell books. Next up, we have got the missing person trope. And the book I've chosen for that is Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. A controversial opinion, I know, but this is actually my favourite Alice Feeney book. I know that this has had mixed reviews among the book community, but me personally, I absolutely loved it. It follows the story of an author called Grady Green, who is suffering from the worst writer's block. He is not feeling very creative because a year ago his wife disappeared and he hasn't been able to concentrate on anything else since. Hoping that a change of scenery will help kickstart his creative juices, Grady decides to go to an isolated Scottish island. I think it's called like Amberley Island or something, Amberley Isle, something like that, where he goes to stay in a cabin and he's hoping that, yeah, it's just going to be able to clear his mind so that he can start writing again, because obviously he needs to start writing because it's his job. Anyway, when he gets to this island, it's all very mysterious. He's not allowed to take his car onto the island, so he's left without transportation. There's this eerie mist that descends out of nowhere that's also very strange. And Grady actually thinks he spots his wife on the island, the one that went missing a year ago. But we've also got an unreliable narrator element in this book because we're not entirely sure as the reader whether he has actually spotted his wife, whether it's somebody that looks like her, or whether Grady is starting to unravel. And I am not going to say anything more about this book because I actually recommend you go into it as blind as possible and just prepare to have your mind absolutely blown. The twist in this book blew my socks off, and there's also a little hidden code that you'll discover when you get to the end that I just thought was so clever. Another book that actually does the missing person trope so well that I couldn't leave out of this video is The Trap by Catherine Ryan Howard. Now, the reason I couldn't leave it out of this video is because this is probably one of the most unhinged books I have ever read. And it follows our main character who roams the dark, isolated roads in the middle of the night, hoping that she will get picked up and abducted by the same person that abducted her sister a year ago. Like, that is unhinged, isn't it? She is so desperate to find her sister that she wants to get abducted by the same man because she thinks that that's the only way she's going to find her. Honestly, when I was reading it, I was like, what are you even doing? This is another one that gave me the most horrendous anxiety while I was reading it, because every time I was like, is she going to get abducted? Is it going to be the same man that took her sister? Like, what's going to happen to it? So yeah, if those are your kind of vibes, then you definitely need to read this book, because the twist, it's another one that absolutely blew my tiny brain. We've got another one of my faves. We've got the creepy kid trope. And the book I have chosen for that is Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak. So this book follows the story of Mallory, who has landed her dream job as a live-in nanny looking after 4-year-old Teddy. And all seems well, to be honest. The house is in an affluent area. Teddy's parents are really supportive of Mallory and her fresh start. But of course, in thriller books, nothing is ever as straightforward as that, because not long after Mallory starts looking after Teddy, he starts drawing the creepiest pictures I have ever seen. And the best thing about the physical copy is, it's probably on Kindle as well, to be honest, is you get the creepy pictures in the book. I'm going to find one for you now. So can you see, like, there's loads throughout the book. The pictures get more and more sinister. Mallory is really freaked out by these pictures. I mean, who wouldn't be? And because she's so freaked out, she actually confiscates Teddy's drawing equipment. So she confiscates his pens and his papers. But the drawings keep coming, and she's like, how is he managing to do this? And basically, these pictures tell a very sinister story, and Mallory must try and piece them all together to solve the mystery and to work out what Teddy is trying to tell her. It is so creepy and atmospheric, and it actually really got under my skin while I was reading it. So yeah, if you love a creepy kid vibe in your thriller books, then definitely try this one. Right, we've got 4 more recommendations, I think. The next trope is the missing child trope. So not just missing person, missing child. And the book I've chosen for that is The Phantom Child by A.J. Wills, which is another one that's available on Kindle Unlimited. So this book follows the story of Karina, who, along with her husband and her 4-year-old son Jacob, go away on holiday. They are desperate for a break. Their marriage has been under a little bit of strain, and she's hoping that the holiday is going to be just what they all need. Anyway, the first morning they wake up on their holiday, Karina is a little bit confused because her son Jacob is usually an early riser and he hasn't been in to wake her up. So she starts to panic a little bit. She goes into Jacob's room and there's no sign of him. So she goes to her husband and says, "Where's Jacob?" And her husband turns around and says to her, "Who's Jacob?" Again, as a mother myself, like, what do you mean, who's Jacob? Like, Jacob is our son. And he says to her, "We haven't got a son, and I've never heard of anybody called Jacob." I'm not going to lie, I would be losing my mind if I was in that situation. And yeah, the whole book, again, we've got another unreliable narrator element in this book, because as readers, we don't know if something has happened to Jacob and he has been abducted or whatever, or if Karina is losing her mind, because she is a very unreliable narrator. Honestly, this is another one that is so underrated in my opinion. I never see anybody talking about it, and I couldn't put it down. I absolutely loved it. Right, next up we have got the speculative near future trope, another one that I absolutely love. And the book I have chosen for this is The Passengers by John Marrs. Now, John Marrs has actually got a whole... They're kind of like a series, but they can all be read as standalones. He's written quite a few speculative near-future thrillers, and I loved them all. But for the purpose of this video, I have decided to talk about The Passengers, because it's another one that absolutely stressed me out while I was reading it. Like, my heart rate was through the roof. So in this book, we have driverless vehicles, and I feel like the reason these books work so well is because they are not too far from, like, our society we live in today. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, there are driverless vehicles, and we follow the story of 8 different drivers who get into their driverless vehicles and their vehicles are hacked. Now, once they've been hacked, all 8 vehicles are set on a collision course, and it is just high speed, race against time, unhinged, wild vibes throughout. These 8 people are from all different walks of life. And the hacker actually gives them, I think he gives them like 60 seconds to plead to the public which ones should be saved. So the public get to vote which ones get saved. There are massive twists throughout the whole book. Like, I didn't know what on earth was going on, but in the best possible way. Like, there was so much going on with every single character in this book, and every single storyline was absolutely bonkers. Next up, we have got the childhood trauma trope, which I actually find really difficult to read, but I didn't want to leave this book out of this video because it is one of my favourite thriller books this year, and it's another one that's extremely underrated in my opinion. It is The Good Girl by Michelle Dunn. So this book follows the story of Grace, who by day is a barista. She lives a very simple life. She's loved by everybody. She looks after her sister as well. Her sister isn't in the best place mentally, so she looks after her sister and she cooks her the most delicious meals because as children, food was very scarce. What nobody would ever suspect is that back at home, Grace has a man cable tied to a chair and she's a serial killer. Now, I am not going to say too much more about this book because I had never heard anybody talking about it before I read it. I went into it completely blind and it wasn't at all the book I thought it was going to be. And I don't want to tell you why because, again, I don't want to spoil it. But all I'm going to say is just go into it as blind as possible. Definitely check trigger warnings first though, because it is a very dark book. It is a lot darker than I thought it was going to be. But this was a 5-star read for me. It absolutely blew me away. I actually did it on audio. And to be honest, I highly recommend audio if audiobooks are your thing because the narrator was absolutely outstanding for this audiobook. Right, we have got the serial killer thriller trope next. And again, this is one of my absolute faves. I could do a whole video. I think I have actually. I'm saying I could do a whole video. I think I have already done a serial killer thriller video previously, but I've managed to just narrow it down to an entire 13-book series, which is the Robert Hunter series by Chris Carter. Now, I haven't bothered getting the physical copies out because otherwise I'd be sat here with a big stack of 13 books. But I recommend every single one of them. I've read the entire series. The lowest I rated was a 3-star, but most of them were 4 to 5 stars. Like, I loved the whole series. And basically the series follows Robert Hunter and his partner Garcia. They both work in the ultra-violent crimes unit in LA, and they profile and help catch the most violent and horrendous serial killers in LA. Every single one of these books is fast-paced. The chapters are really short. Every single chapter ends on a cliffhanger. You know, like the ... cliffhanger where you're like, oh my God, of course I'm going to have to read the next chapter. And before you know it, you have devoured half the book. Like, they are so easy to read. What I will say actually is I've done 2 of them on audio and I don't recommend the audio for these, which is very unusual for me to say because I usually recommend the audio versions. But I read the rest of the series physically and I actually got a completely different vibe from Robert Hunter and Garcia when I read them physically to when I listened to 2 of the audio versions. And I really didn't like the way they were portrayed in the audiobook. So I would actually steer clear of the audiobooks of these. And yeah, these books, I'm telling you now, they do not hold back. I don't think they've been published in the US because the US publishers keep telling Chris Carter they're too dark to publish. I actually met Chris Carter in May and he was telling us all, like, he cannot get a US publishing deal because the US publishers won't touch him. The books actually remind me of the Criminal Minds series with the gore levels of the Saw films. Like, they are very, very dark, very graphic, very extreme. There were so many scenes throughout all of these books where I was wincing as I was reading them. Like, I was like reading it like that because I couldn't look at the words. Some of the crime scenes, absolutely grim. But I personally really like a dark, gory serial killer thriller book. So if you do as well, you absolutely need to be adding this series to your reading list. And last but definitely not least, we have got a toxic relationship trope. And I've gone a bit rogue for this because I haven't gone with your typical toxic couple relationship. I've actually gone with a toxic mother-daughter relationship. And the book I've chosen is What Lies Between Us by John Mars. This is actually available on Kindle Unlimited and it is one of the most unhinged books I have ever read. It is about a mother and daughter, and the daughter has her own mother chained up in the attic. Like, that's the opening of the book. And you're like, okay, I just know I'm in for a wild ride. So Nina is the daughter, Maggie is the mother, and to be honest, they're both as bad as each other. And as the reader, you don't know which one is worse, which side you're on. They're both completely batshit crazy. They're both I think I've said the word unhinged about 20 million times in this video, but they are both completely unhinged. And I just had such a fun time while I was reading it, because the more the book goes on, the more unhinged their behaviour becomes. I mean, it's classic John Mars, to be honest. I do feel like a lot of his books just have the most despicable and unhinged characters in them. And I'm not going to say too much more about it because I don't want to spoil any of these books for you. I want you to have the same experience I did when I read them. And you know what? This is actually another one I did on audio, and I did really enjoy the audio for this because it was quite nice to get the POV of the two different characters, because you almost got like their thought process. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, if this book is on your radar, even though it is on Kindle Unlimited, I do highly recommend the audio for it. And yeah, that brings me to the end of today's video. I really hope you've enjoyed watching, and I hope you've managed to get some inspiration for your own reading lists. Please let me know in the comments if you have got any other favourite tropes that I've missed out. Let me know if you've read any of these, if any of them are on your radar, if you will be adding any of them to your reading list as well. If you did enjoy watching, please don't forget to hit that little subscribe button below. I would absolutely love it if you decided to stick around and follow for lots of book recommendations. I have got a full month of Vlogmas videos planned. I'm going to do 12 days of Vlogmas next month, which I'm so excited to start filming. And yeah, I would absolutely love it if you decided to stay for that. But I think I will leave it there for now and stop yapping. Happy reading, and I'll catch you all next time.